This is GamesAtWork.biz, your weekly podcast about gaming, technology, and play. Your hosts are Michael Martin, Andy Piper, and Michael Rowe. The thoughts and opinions on this podcast are those of the hosts and guests alone and are not the opinions of any organization which they have been, are, or may be affiliated with.
This is episode 542, Vibe Coding Vowels. Hello and welcome to another edition of GamesAtWork.biz. This is Michael Martin, one of your three co-hosts, and I'm really happy to be here with the other two co-hosts as well. We have Andy Piper here. Andy, how are you doing today?
Hello, I'm doing well, and if you are joining us from Late Night Linux, then welcome. This is my podcast that I do weekly with these two Michaels. I just did a little insert on the Late Night Linux podcast a couple of weeks back to promote OG Camp, which is coming up in April. So, yeah. Hi.
Awesome. Great. And welcome to everybody. And let me also say hello to Mr. Michael Rowe. Hi, Michael, the other Michael on the show. How are you, Michael?
Hey! I'm doing well, and any new listeners, thanks for finding us. We look forward to hearing from you, either in our Mastodon instances that we are on via Toots, or over at our website at gamesatwork.biz. Michael, take it away.
I will. So our first article that we're going to cover today comes from Hackaday. We have lots of fun things that we find there, and actually it's Andy. He finds most of the fun things that are on Hackaday. And the very first one that we're going to talk about is doing some vibe coding, writing code. Well, I mean, not vibe coding, but that's probably in there too, in Welsh. And I am not going to even try to pronounce the translation of that in Welsh. Andy, do you happen to have any talent in this particular language?
In Welsh or in Raku?
Yes. Well, let's start with Welsh.
Either.
Let's start with Welsh.
No, I don't. It's interesting to me because a friend of mine runs an instance, a Mastodon server for the Welsh speaking language. So and he's actually launching an app, a specific app for that community at the end of February in Cardiff. And I'm hoping to go over to his launch event. But this came across my radar and it's interesting. I think that language preservation and the connection between language, spoken language, and identity is really fascinating. So the idea here, which is that they've taken a language called Raku, which is something of a successor to the Perl language, and created a dialect of it that is written in the Welsh language, is really interesting. Quite a few years ago, probably at least 20 years ago, I saw one of the greatest tech presentations I'd been in, which was a guy who talked about writing a programming language in Latin, and basically demonstrated that you can present logical concepts in any language you like, and he chose Latin. Damien Conway he's quite a famous speaker, and this put me back in mind of that.
I think what's really cool about this, as you say, the textual representation of thought for programming should be able to be in any language, right? Because it's just a parser that has to understand what you're asking for, which got me thinking of a story I was listening to the other day, where someone was interpreting the ability to use LLMs and chatbots as a programming input model, because it is parsing your language and generating a machine-readable set of instructions.
Yeah, and absolutely, why not? And when you think about it, why couldn't your code be commented in a different language, which it certainly can, and why couldn't the language itself be updated as well in a way that may take advantage of that. The thing that my brain went to a little bit was the SAP ABAP programming environment, and how one of the nifty things about that was if you spoke German, you could find things a whole lot faster because you knew that KUNNR, which is a field in a lot of tables, was the abbreviation for Kundennummer, or customer number. And the language of German certainly had an influence on the way the ABAP programming language was set up and operated too. So,
well, the point that you made is actually interesting again, because it's the second aspect, right? Because comments don't impact the flow; they don't impact the machine readable part, but you can take, and this is something that a lot of IDEs are doing now, they take the comments and use that as an input into the LLM to generate the code. So
right.
Again, the language doesn't matter. If it can understand the input language and interpret that into a set of instructions that generate code or machine readable format, then the language itself doesn't necessarily matter as long as the input interpreter understands it.
Correct. Absolutely. So things are happening very, very quickly in lots of this space. Certainly in our large language models, machines talking to machines, agents talking to agents. And we have an article here from entitled, "Is It Really Happening That Quickly?" The 2025 edition. And this article, well, it's more of a blog post, I guess, Andy, is probably the way to start it off, is talking about how things, well, in many ways are the same, and they take a while to materialize. So AI is not that new, of course. We've had that conversation here before, but they use some other great examples about transportation and a few others about how the evolution, and I'm sure this appealed to the history aspect from your background of that long arc of how things have been, are, and will be moving into the future. What were the big takeaways, would you say, from what you saw here?
So this is a blog post by Matt Ballantyne, who's an awesome technologist here in the UK, and he shared this in a community I'm part of recently, and he talks about the being on the steep part of the S-curve, and the fact that you need to know where you are in the S-curve to understand what you're measuring. So we are potentially at the moment on the very steep part of the S-curve before everything levels out and nothing seems to sort of change. So you're in this area where it seems like everything's going at 100 miles an hour. But the article here points out, as you say, Michael, a load of parallels between the changes that we are living through and observing and being blinded by at the moment against things like the telegraph. Excellent Wikipedia article referred to the Victorian Internet, which is a 1998 book, which talks about the telegraph and similar things. You know, you've got this magical technology which suddenly enables you at the time to communicate between continents more quickly than ever before, and it was world changing, but it was building on this whole stack of other stuff. And that's one of the key things, again, as we know about the AI hype. There is not some magical bottled up thing that people have invented in the last 2 years and is going at 100 miles an hour. This is this is taking advantage of an existing stack of tools and technologies that have been growing and building for quite some time. The other interesting element of this is where he talks about stop asking how fast is this happening and start asking what we're trying to achieve. Right? Mm-hmm. So if the AI component isn't crucial to the outcome, then you probably don't need it. Exactly right.
Well, what's really interesting to me is I've been on so many presentations and other things where people show the different adoption curves, talking about S curves. You know, from the time that the automobile was invented to the time that 50% of American households had the automobile in the U.S. was X number of years, decades. You go to the television, you go to the phone, you go to the mobile phone, etc., and it keeps getting shorter and shorter. However, along that same line, there's a TV show that I know people like, and my brother's a huge fan of this, called Connections, that talks about how something going back hundreds of years ultimately leads to the creation of something now, right? And so even the LLM article timeline reference in the article, I remember work that I was doing in the 90s around AI with building knowledge matrices and trying to figure out how to interpret an input by a user and then building a neural network, right, to get to the ultimate answer that was given, right? And so you start thinking about LLMs are, again, they're an interpreter. They understand, and I use understand in air quotes, language, but it's not an LLM by itself that is purely the evolution that's driving the incredible change that we are seeing around how fast recently people are adopting it for coding. And that's because coding is a structured thing and it uses language, and you start building up all these components, and suddenly you have, something like Cursor or Claude or whatever to do very fast, rapid prototyping development.
Yeah, that's super cool. I like the long arc, idea here a lot. And Andy, this might appeal for you too. I had the opportunity just yesterday to be in a talk given by Dr. Kate Darling, who was describing how robotics has emerged over time, and she's done a lot of human robotic interface sort of work, and her comments around how robots oftentimes we look for the human aspect of them. So back, Michael, to your point of thought, right? We're ascribing thought to things that are really just a decision tree, or that we're looking for faces and things, because there are things that appear to be eyes, and then what does that mean, for the world? One of the points that she was raising that I thought was really interesting was we've as humanity have grown to use and work with animals for companionship, for labor, for transportation. And one of the thoughts that she was bringing forward to all of us is that if we think about robots in a similar way to how we've partnered with animals for a variety of things, that may be a better way to think about the future. I mean, it was a wide-ranging talk, lots of interesting stuff, but it was kind of an intriguing thing that, yes, we use oxen to plow the field, right? The robot or the agent, when we think about it in those terms, are a little bit different, and that might help us break through the place where adoption is harder, or where we're ascribing too many human-like characteristics to something that is inherently not human anyway.
So are you saying that if we really want to get people to adopt our agentic code or agent, we need to give it big googly eyes? Like a puppy?
Actually, no. She gave an example yesterday where there's a grocery chain in the Northeast called Stop and Shop, and there was a robot there that was about 6 foot tall that would go around the store, and its purpose was to notice if there were any products that were out of place, right? So if a can had fallen off a shelf, and then it would notify a person in the store to go pick up the can of peas and put it back.
Yo, right? Over here.
Kind of. So they'd put big googly eyes on it, and people hated it. They were like, people hate this thing because it's watching me. It's watching me shop. It thinks I'm shoplifting. I hate this. So it was a really intriguing thing that maybe we wouldn't have thought about it in that way, but maybe we would. Yeah. And you have to think about those levels of adoption, right?
Yeah, I was just thinking about the whole idea that animals evolved to have humans appreciate them, right? You have puppies; they're so cute. Kittens are so cute, but one of the things is they got the big cute eyes, and so we might bring them into our area and let them eat our garbage.
Oh, yeah, that might be a way to solve a garbage problem.
20,000 years ago. Garbage was good back in the day.
Well, I had a ton of questions I wanted to ask her, but I didn't get a chance to. And anywho, let's move along because we've got some other fun things to talk about, and one of which is the Nintendo Virtual Boy. So this is a peripheral for the Switch, and I think it works for both the Switch 2 and the original Switch. I don't remember if it's both of them, but the article from The Verge talks about its capabilities and concludes, at least, that it's not all that it's cracked up to be. Andy, I think you were the one who identified this one too, right?
I mean, it seems like the show is riding on my discoveries this week, so I'll take credit for that.
So thank you.
Yeah,
all Andy all the time.
We talked.
That's good. I cut all mine out.
I think we talked about it a few episodes ago when they announced that it was coming. If not, then I was talking to somebody else about it, and I'm hallucinating like an AI. But the idea here, I believe, is that you're right, that it can work with either version of the Switch. You slot the screen display into the Virtual Boy headset, so you can do what they used to do essentially with the old Google Cardboard headsets, where you just slot the phone into the front.
I was thinking of, and I can't remember what it's called, but remember the thing that you put the disc in and
it does look a lot like the ViewMaster.
It looked kind of like a ViewMaster to me.
But
it's because it's red.
But it also looks exactly,
and
3D. It is
3D.
exactly like the original Virtual Boy, right? That you had this red headset. I never got to play on a Virtual Boy, so I can't comment on the experience. But the experience of the reviewer seems to be that it's the games just aren't very good. So it's just almost a completionist thing rather than anything else. If you really want to be able to say I've got all of the Nintendo games and all the systems and stuff, then maybe it's worth it. But otherwise, not.
I saw, and I can't remember if it was on Mastodon or somewhere in my feed, I saw somebody who had taken the games that show up on the Virtual Boy and said, it's much better than the Virtual Boy. I've got it running in a window inside of a Vision Pro and a MetaQuest because there's all these game emulators that can do the same thing, and you've already got a big headset on, right? So why not just put it there?
Exactly. Now, going back to the future just a smidge here, Michael, when you were talking about putting big googly eyes on things, that kind of reminded me of this TechCrunch article that had googly eyes on these 3D generated in-world Roblox experiences. And they're calling it 4D generation, which again, I'm assuming time will work for the fourth dimension there for you. And it's called Wishmaster. And it reminded me an awful lot of the sort of vibe coding experience that we've heard about from our meta reading, where you could voice into being an object that you would like to see in your virtual world experience. Andy, you're kind of doing a no kind of look on your face for that.
That's a big sigh.
That's a big sigh.
I mean, it really requires these models to be very effective and highly accurate for it all to be usable. The demos in the videos that this shows look very polished, and I am very doubtful that we are at a point where you can do what they're trying to demonstrate.
Claiming.
But maybe it's worth it. I mean, it's an open beta rather than something that they claim is a done deal. So perhaps it's interesting. I'm also not the target audience. I don't play Roblox. I don't generate and build a lot of 3D models for the purposes of inserting into video games. The 3D models I've attempted to create using tools of this kind, albeit not through necessarily through voice, through typing in a description, haven't been that great. So, yeah.
I think, to your point, Andy, about these are highly polished models. I did notice that the wheels on the cars don't move.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Right.
Right. So I remember back even in the Second Life days trying to build models, and I spent hours and hours just putting a table together, right? That was static. So building models that represent motion in a realistic way are tough. I had seen another article this week, and I didn't throw it in the show notes, of how Roblox is trying to get more adults into the environment. And I would assume this would be one step in there, because it would be more interactive and allow you to do more creative things.
Interesting. Makes sense. The other way to do it is you let the people who are playing Roblox become adults and give them reasons to stay.
That'll happen eventually.
Right.
For most of them.
Right. So thinking about something that's in the 3D environment and that maybe is a little bit, working right now, although this is a beta too, as I'm reading about it from Gizmodo, there was a news article about how in the Quest 3 there is a virtual keyboard that seems to actually function and work, and that's probably a strong statement that that it actually works, right? So it still requires a flat surface. It projects it in a way that you can then see the virtual keyboard on said flat surface and then be able to interact with it using your fingers.
So years ago,
the light version.
like I think a decade ago, I got this that you can see on the audio podcast, which is the light version that projects a red keyboard on any flat surface and then uses the breaking of the light where your finger is pressing down as a way of identifying where you're typing on the keyboard. I find flat keyboards of any kind to be horrible. Whether I'm talking in a virtual space, on my phone, on my tablets, or whatever, I like a real keyboard that is probably less clackety-clackety than some people like keyboards, but I like physical keys. So I actually, when I'm in my virtual headset, I have a Bluetooth keyboard that pairs with my headset, and I use a keyboard. So I think those work really good. But I get the idea, and you're absolutely right. It's a different approach that seems to make sense. It will resonate with a lot of users, I think, and provide some way of better input than pure using eye tracking or finger typing in the air, right? It's good
this
to see.
Reminds me of the BBC, the virtual BBC Micro, the web page with the 3D virtual BBC Micro that I tried in the Quest when I first got the Quest, I think, Quest 2. And that was really frustrating to actually try to type on because it was doing the early finger tracking with the Quest 2, and that was just not very effective, especially when it was trying to hit floating three-dimensional keys rather than, as Michael's just described, a projected thing on a flat surface. So
yeah, this is one of those things. I think your mileage is going to vary, and you've got to try it to see if it works for you. I mean, there's the Dvorak keyboards. There are those weird Microsoft ones that kind of were up at an angle, and there's some people that got very used to that. There's the whole idea of the I remember saying, what was it, Mr. Mumbles or something like that, where you're going to speak your way into doing what it is that you're doing and just using voice to text. And I did think exactly, Michael, about your experience with the light projected keyboard and the tactile response that is kind of important, right? Because then that provides that little bit of extra feedback that you're doing what you intend to do, right?
It's also accuracy, right? I mean, with a projected one, that one at least was in a fixed position. So even in a VR headset, if you have good placement of the virtual keyboard on a flat surface and it locks to that place, right, it might be better. Otherwise, head movement could cause problems, etc. I hope that has gotten so good in the last 6 years. Placement
and anchoring,
and I think the key aspect there is agree with you on the tactile feedback, but also it's not just tactile feedback; it's muscle memory. I don't have to look at a keyboard when it's a physical keyboard.
Right.
When it is a virtual keyboard, I am constantly looking at
Well,
it.
you have to be aware in space where it is relative to your hands, because if you moved your hands a little bit,
Object permanence.
well, it's not that if you close your eyes it disappears. It's if you adjust. I think your point is if you adjust your head even a bit, your hands are no longer there, unless what happens is you've summoned the keyboard,
Feel something.
and the system places the keyboard under your hands. Right, and moves
Well, in that
it.
case, you might as well just attach it to the ends of my fingers.
And why not? Right, Minority Report
Right.
all the way.
So
There was one related article to the muscle memory and buttons that I don't have handy, but it was one of the EV manufacturers where all the screens were in the car and they were all the touch button things that people were like don't like them, and this one manufacturer implemented a solution where you would magnetically attach a row of buttons to the bottom of the screen, and it was done by the manufacturer. So if you like buttons, bink, there's your buttons. You can press them all day long. If you don't like buttons, it's not there and you're just using the screen. So I thought that was a novel way of handling the people who are like, I want my buttons. So hadn't seen anything like that before. All right. Well, closing out for our show today, we've got a couple of Lego items, as we are wont to do here on the show. And the one that came across my feed was from a Reddit article about a home that a couple of people built, a house in Maine. And it was a 17,000 piece model that these guys created, super detailed, of their own home. The home was built in, it looks like 1799. So it's quite a long ways, and it took a long time to build the home, but it's extremely detailed. And if you flip through the pictures in the Reddit article, one of the fun things that I saw in there was they built a model of this home miniature in the home so that you can look at it and see the model of the home inside the home. So that was an appealing thing to me.
homes all the way down.
Exactly. And we had one other, and Michael, this I think was from you, a new idea set, right? That looks like it's coming through with some spacey themed things.
Well, a Project Hail Mary is a book by Andy Weir, the author of The Martian. I read it, I want to say 6 or more years ago. That's coming out very soon as a movie, major motion picture movie with Ryan Gosling. I can't wait for the movie. One thing, I thought the book was really cool, similar to the vein of The Martian, but different. Yeah, I just thought, with our Lego themed world, this was a pretty cool design to look at, and it's not too big, 830 pieces, not too bad.
Yeah. So Andy, you might like to know that I did put in an order for the Star Wars set with the new Lego brick.
Now, did you get the right one?
Well, hopefully I did.
You didn't get the...
Which is the right one?
Define
You have to...
right
Well, there were two types. There's the ones with the companion sets, which don't actually
Yes.
contain the smart brick. And then there's the base sets that contain the smart brick. So you have to have the right one. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're going to... Until you've got the base set with the smart brick, you can't do anything else.
Well, I'm pretty sure I have the right one, but I'll find out one way or another before long, because they got my
Very
order
soon
and they're
it all
going
arrives.
to ship it as soon as it's available. It's out the door. Well, we will share more news on AI, Lego, maybe even some Welsh here on our next editions of Games at Work.biz. And as Michael said at the top of the show, we would love to have your ideas, feedback, things you're finding that are interesting, clever, a little weird, and we will be happy to take them on board, give them due consideration, and talk about them on another future version of Games at Work.biz. Until then, we'll say see ya.
See ya.
Bye.
You've been listening to GamesAtWork.biz, the podcast about gaming, technology, and play. We are part of the Blueberry Podcasting Network, and would like to thank the band Random Encounters for their song, Big Blue. You can follow us at our website at GamesAtWork.biz.